Show find me over my fence, so I built a 15-meter steel wall. Told in first person by Marcus Hall, 45 veteran engineer and widower. They fined me for a fence, so I gave them a wall. I moved to Sycamore Hills to escape the noise. After 2 decades in the Army Corps of Engineers and 5 years building bridges overseas, all I wanted was quiet, a garden, a dog, maybe sleep through the night without flinching at a slammed door. So I bought a modest ranch on the outer loop corner lot, old oak tree in the front, and an aging wooden fence that needed replacing. It backed up to a small nature trail and gave my rescue dog, Boone, space to roam without fear. I replaced it with care, leveled the posts, used treated cedar, stained it the color of dark honey. It stood 4 feet high, well within code. I even double-checked with city permits. That's when Karen Weather showed up. She didn't knock. She appeared. Blonde bob, mirrored sunglasses, clipboard like a weapon. You didn't get HOA approval for that. I wiped sweat from my brow and replied, I cleared it with the city. HOA can't override municipal guidelines. She smirked. We can enforce aesthetic cohesion. Consider this your first warning. 3 days later, I got a fine for $1 or $200 in the mail. Unapproved fence installation, signed by K. Weathers, HOA president. I filed an appeal. It was denied. I spoke at the next HOA meeting. Karen cut me off after 45 seconds. They set a precedent. She said, if you get away with it, others will think they can too. The following week, Boone got out. Someone had cut through my fence with bolt cutters. He was hit by a delivery van. He lived, but he limped for the rest of his life. That was the moment something inside me locked in. They wanted control. I knew how to build something they couldn't ignore. I ordered steel, not sheet metal industrial-grade ballistic steel, the kind used in temporary military barricades. I welded it section by section, designing interlocking panels, self-stabilizing bases, pressure-set anchors. When Karen asked what I was doing, I replied, installing a boundary you can't find me for. She scoffed. You're bluffing. I wasn't. Within 14 days, a 15-meter-long, 3-meter-tall steel wall rose between my home and the HOA park, coated in matte gray, silent as the night, and utterly unignorable. It didn't violate height limits thanks to a local variance tied to safety installations along the trail. It was legal, and it was mine. Neighbors called it the Iron Curtain. I called it justice. Karen called the city. They laughed. One inspector called it the cleanest install I've seen all year. The HOA couldn't find a single ordinance to fight me with, so they turned to lies. Karen claimed I was mentally unstable, told neighbors I was a paranoid militant, accused me of building a bunker. Then she sent HOA security to inspect my yard armed with fake badges and clipboards. I installed cameras, posted footage online. The internet took it from there. Veteran builds wall to block, HOA tyrant. Public cheers, HOA Karen tried to find his fence. Now she sees steel don't mess with a combat engineer's property line. Karen's emails leaked. Screenshots revealed she'd been targeting veterans, single moms, and immigrants, calling them aesthetic threats in private group chats. And that's when the real cracks began. I didn't expect the wall to go viral. But 2 days after I posted the security footage of HOA inspectors trespassing and peeking over Boone's recovery pen, the story exploded. Veterans groups picked it up first, then homeowner forums, then TikTok got a hold of it. By the end of the week, I had offers to be interviewed by 3 local radio stations and a podcast called HOA Horror Stories. Karen wasn't amused. She doubled down. She organized a community action event in the park on the other side of the wall, right up against my property line. Loud music, decorative flags, folding chairs, signs that said, "This is our neighborhood," and "Remove the wall." Boone and I watched from the porch. It didn't last. Midway through her speech, someone asked, "Why did you find a man who built a code-compliant fence?" Karen ignored them. Another shouted, "Did you cut his fence and let his dog out?" That's when her composure cracked. "I am the one holding this community together," she shouted into a handheld mic. "This wall is a disgrace." Then a teenager piped up. "It's quieter now than before. I kind of like it." Laughter, awkward, then real. Her own event turned on her. She stormed off, and I smiled. But I wasn't done. Because behind the fines and the posturing, I knew there had to be more. This wasn't just about a fence or a power-hungry neighbor. This was about money. I started digging. With help from an attorney friend from my Army days, Derek, I subpoenaed the HOA's financial records through public disclosure laws. What we found made my blood run cold. Over $120,000 in HOA improvement funds had been spent in the last fiscal year, but less than $10,000 could be accounted for through work orders or receipts. Most of it had gone to a company called Weathers Property Enhancements, LLC, Karen's company, registered under her husband's name. She was funneling HOA fines and dues into her own business, charging inflated prices for fake landscaping, unnecessary sidewalk pressure washing, even phantom inspections of roof lines and fences. Dozens of these charges were billed to urgent HOA compliance corrections, most with vague line items like visual abatement or alignment review. None of them were real. Worse, she'd billed the HOA to pay her son for contract security services. That was the kid who'd cut my original fence. We turned it all over to the city's Office of Homeowner Regulation. 3 weeks later, it happened. Karen was served with a cease and desist, civil fraud charges, and a formal ethics investigation. She denied everything, called it a smear campaign, but she couldn't explain the missing money. She couldn't explain why HOA patrols were driving vehicles registered under her company. And she couldn't explain why the new HOA president elected in an emergency meeting received a flash drive in their mailbox with full backups of her email correspondence, including a chilling message. If this man doesn't remove that fence, I will make sure no one ever moves into that home after he breaks. That was the final straw. The HOA board voted unanimously to remove her permanently, dissolve her company's contract, and audit every fine she'd issued over the last 2 years. Fines were refunded. Victims were paid back. Some even received damages. Karen, she lawyered up. But public pressure mounted fast. Her house was vandalized not by me, but by people who'd lost family members to abusive power. The words "never again" were spray painted on her garage. It was ugly, and I didn't cheer, because no matter how satisfying it might seem, I wasn't doing this for revenge. I was doing it so the next family didn't get crushed in silence. In the months that followed, Sycamore Hills changed. The HOA was rebuilt under new leadership, rotating positions, community votes, full transparency. I was asked to join. I declined, but I helped them write a new charter, one that required unanimous consent to fine and third-party inspection before code enforcement. We created a hardship clause for residents on fixed income and a mediation panel led by actual trained volunteers, not just power-hungry retirees with clipboards. I kept the wall. It became more than a symbol. Kids tagged it with murals, trees, birds, even a painting of Boone with a little crown on his head. Someone hung wind chimes from one end. I installed a spotlight so it glowed at night. It stopped feeling like a barricade and started feeling like a canvas for resilience. Karen tried to sue the HOA. She lost. She tried to sell her home. No one would buy. Eventually, her bank foreclosed. She moved out in the middle of the night. No goodbye, no apology, just silence. The same silence she tried to find out of everyone else. The last thing I'll say happened exactly 1 year later. I was in the yard, pruning the hedge Boone liked to roll under. He barked once, sharp and low. I turned. A luxury SUV idled down the street, a tinted window rolled down, and a man in a gray suit leaned out and said, "Nice wall." "Thanks," I replied. "Hope you're ready to build more." The car rolled away before I could ask anything else. I haven't seen him since, but I know what he meant. Bullies don't disappear. They reorganize. What would you have done in Marcus's place? Was the steel wall justified or over the top? When does standing up for your rights become a symbol for something bigger? Share your thoughts below, because silence can be a weapon, but so can your voice.